Here we
Okay, one
are.
more thing before we record.
Okay, well, we're recording now, but that's all right.
Okay, so I did upload my file to IBX. So you're saying to upload it again and
Try
then to see
the.
if that works?
I'm saying try this one that I made. If you can upload this one, test number 2, FBX, it has animation, and I know it does, for sure. So if you can get the animation to display there, then you're doing everything correct and there's something wrong with your file. If you can't, then it's the way that you're using Sketchfab. Okay? But I'm going to start
Okay,
going through
I'll
everyone's
try.
projects, otherwise we're going to take too long. And then I can help you more afterward. Ooh, there's a train.
Oh, sorry.
All right, hello everybody. Let's take a look at everyone's projects that are submitted today, shall we? I'm going to start with Eli because it's the first one on the list that I can see. Let's see what we've got. We've got some renders, it looks like, of a nice little neighborhood. Cool. Okay. We've got nighttime neighborhood. Very cool. Very good. Wireframe. And looks like a UV unwrap as well. Cool. I mean, all of that looks fine to me. I don't know what he was trying to do. I could go look at the project submission maybe. Do we have Eli in the chat? I don't see him. So, I mean, this looks fine to me. The render looks pretty high quality. It's sort of a facade, almost toy-like right now. I think it's got some charm to it. Maybe we're missing doors, you know? Could have some nicely modeled doors. But other than that, I don't know. I mean, depends on what he's trying to do. It seems like he might be trying to experiment with lighting and rendering, which would be a pretty good way to do it like this. Yeah, I'm looking at this one in particular with the lighting on the rooftop. There's at least a little bit of color pickup from these awnings reflecting back at the building, which is really nice to see that small detail. Yeah, not really seeing anything in the way of materials, just lighting. So I'm assuming that's what he's trying to do. So very good. I look forward to reading the write-up for that one to see what it is he was trying to do, but it looks pretty successful to me. All right, let's move on down to Jesse. So Jesse, as a reminder, because I haven't seen him in chat ever, I want you to try to upload to itch.io using the information that I have in Canvas for publishing WebGL. So I'm going to just show really quick those instructions because it is way, way easier for all of us to view your work if it's playable in browser, and it gets you a leg up for getting an audience and playtesters. So if I go to publishing your projects in module 1, we've got your build settings being changed to WebGL, right? Include the scenes that are involved. Export, and you're going to end up with this index.html, a build folder, a template, data folder. You have to zip all three things into one folder, upload to itch.io, and change the kind to HTML. Okay, if you change the kind of project to HTML, upload a zip with all three of those, you should be able to play in browser, and then we don't have to download and run anything. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is download this whole folder and see how long that takes, and then we'll demo it like that. But what I really want is for it to be uploaded to itch.io. Okay, I'm going to give that time to see if it will complete, and we'll look at Salvo's. Salvo's got something in Sketchfab. What's he got? Oh, is this what we already saw earlier this week? Yeah. Okay, just wanted to make sure. I just saw it in the list and wanted to verify. But we already took a look at this, so I think you're good. Okay. Then, going down the list. We had a couple that had to move. We've got Gary. Okay, so right and left, space and mouse click. Oh, I'm a farmer. Space to jump, mouse click to fire.
Wait, could you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Okay, so yes, so this is an art like art like 2D art because I don't think I've done 2D art before, so it was like kind of a challenge at times.
Okay. And you were replacing the assets from your previous project to get all of this to work properly.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
All right. I mean, I see farmer, fence, barn back there. It's a little weird that we're floating in space up here and everything, but
yeah,
other than that, I mean, it seems like you had at least some success here.
yeah.
Yeah. Were you attempting to replace all of the assets or just as many as you could?
As many as I could.
Okay.
I still need to do like grass for the for where you like are at.
For the platforms and whatever.
Yeah, the platform. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest thing would be a background. Like, what do
All
you
right.
want to appear in the distance? Hills or stars, or is it
Okay.
nighttime? That sort of thing.
Yeah. And this one I kind of
Really
messed
big
up.
barn.
Yeah, the big barn.
You probably noticed that it gets a little pixelated when you start scaling things really big.
Yeah.
The rule of thumb is that whatever you're going to create as an art asset, you have to create it the largest size that you're going to see it, and then scaling down is easy, but scaling up causes artifacting like that. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you got to illustrate rather large things, or in the case of a barn, you could illustrate separate panels and kind of construct a barn. And usually that's a way to get away with smaller illustration size, but then you got to kind of think in tiles at that point.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Are you going to try animations, or are you basically done with this one?
With animation, well, with the platform tutorial, I saw that they changed the sprites, and I kind of want to do that type of animation. I think
hmm So that would
instead
mean
of like the
separate illustrations for the whole character.
yeah.
And you think that'll be okay?
I'm gonna try it, but if I can't do it, I might change to a different type of game.
Just keep in mind that if you're going to try traditional animation, re-illustrating the character, having just a run pose won't do it. You have to have frames sufficient to make it look like they're performing an action. The lowest that you can get away with is 15 per second. So 15 drawings for 1 second of action. Actually, that's
Uh,
not the lowest you can get away with. You could get away with eight drawings per second, and it would look a
okay.
little choppy, but it would still work.
All right. I'll try it, see if it works.
If it's your first time ever and you're not like
Yeah.
super on fire for animation, I would say skip it and do something else. But if you're
Okay.
really interested in animation, then I am the animation instructor at Norco, and you can ask me for advice and help on that, and I'm happy to demonstrate.
Okay. Okay. I'll ask you some other time.
Okay, well, and I'm happy to demonstrate this stuff on stream, like particularly Monday. We usually have less to talk about, and so on Mondays I can demonstrate whatever people want me to.
Okay.
Great.
That'll be good. All
All
right. Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, it looks like we got this downloaded. Going to pop it up on the desktop there, and then see if I can play it. Oh, I remember this one. I think we did preview this one last week. Okay, so probably it just hasn't changed in that time and I just forgot. Or not last week, on Monday. So I'll skip this one for now, assuming that it hasn't changed. It didn't seem like it had, that we saw that one on Monday. But very good. All right. One, I think we looked at Ammo Crate as well, but let's take another look. Just to refresh my memory. Oh, we've got animation now. I actually don't remember the animation, so maybe that's new. Nice. It looks like the same content though, and no textures yet. So looking forward to seeing textures on this. One, is that about right? I see you. Oh, check. Yes. Okay. and taking a look. So it looks like next week we can maybe anticipate textures on the crate. Looks promising though. Okay. Now we've got. However, I changed the shotgun shell to be more round. Oh, you did? I didn't actually notice. Let me see again. I'm going to pause it open. We're talking about these guys? Oh, haven't downloaded yet. Okay. All right. That makes sense. All right. Thank you. Let's look at Matt's. Swap weapon between rifle and pistol was his goal. And Matt's here. Hello. How'd it go?
I'm currently experiencing that thing where I'm having like push to talk issues, so I apologize. I'm late.
Okay. Understood.
It went okay, not to my satisfaction. I wasn't able to do it in a satisfying way. I had to kind of bougie it for the player and force them into a box right with two swappers, and that's kind of a bullshit way in my opinion. I wanted to do one parent where it's like seamless transition and you don't move a little bit. You'll see.
How do I swap between weapons?
There's a table with two guns on it right there by the shooting range.
Over by this building?
You turn around. Right.
Oh, right here. Okay. I seem to be like walking through mud or something. Really slow. There we go. E.
Oh, you press 1, 2, 3, or 4. That's just part of the free asset. Press 1 to go back to normal speed.
Oh, I see. Wow, that's weird.
Yeah, I didn't. I forgot to take that out.
Okay. I see what you're talking about. So it's kind of like we teleport back and forth to a specific spot.
Because those are two different character controllers, and what I wanted them to be the same parent, but because of how the scripting of that asset works, it's a bundle and a half. So I did that, so I'm not satisfied with it.
Yeah.
I did technically do what I wanted to do, which is swap between the shit, and because I forced them to be right there,
Right.
it's kind of seamless, but it's not what I'm satisfied with.
Sure. I see what you're saying. Okay. I guess it is possible to record your player's position and angle and everything, and then use that when you instantiate the other character, but that's probably not the best way to do it. It's more like just an animation swap.
Well, it's fine.
But okay, I mean, you did accomplish your goal, like whether or not it's a little bit clunky, you did manage to do it.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, yay, right? But not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know you want to figure it out more to your satisfaction. Maybe something simpler than a.
Like you just press two. You know, like one is pistol, two is AK. Swap.
Yeah.
And I was working on another scene build where I was trying to do that, and the same script that I'm using to transition between guns, I just put that on numbers 1 and 2. But where my issue is still like it was teleporting me slightly. Even though they're parented correctly, I proceed for that version.
Yeah.
It's not good. And this one worked. So I built the environment, put it in the way that I did, and then submitted it.
Let me ask, at any point did you see in code an example of what you were looking to do already functional that you could pick apart?
I do that sort of stuff. It didn't occur to me to do that in regards to that.
Okay.
So no, I did not look for that.
Because that's usually one of the best ways is just like see how someone else did the thing and then try to make it your own. But what I'm going to suggest is maybe try and do it with a much simpler circumstance, like a handheld sword versus a handheld stick. They work the same, they just look different. And could you get rapid swapping between those two things? And the answer is probably at that point, you know. And then you can work on different behaviors along with different appearances.
Those doors are openable.
They are? Oh. Got him. He's dead. Okay, cool.
Yeah, a little environment. That's what that is. Apparently, I did my goal, but
Yep.
I'm not satisfied with it. So next time I want to do something like this, I'm gonna look into more simple
Yeah.
swapping.
And I'm thinking that it's going to be something along the lines of your character is going to stay the same, but what's going to change is like their animation set or the asset that is their hands is going to change. So like the
Yeah,
character's hands and the weapon in them will change, the animations will change, but the character controller itself will remain constant. That's what I would guess.
I understand that line of thinking. I'm gonna have to like look into if I wanted to implement that with those two character controllers. I'd have to see if I could
I
make
think
that work.
don't worry about these character controllers because these were pre-made and you didn't have anything to do with them, right? That makes it harder to work with.
Yes, but I simplified them a lot. There was a lot more
Right.
that they had.
But if your character, like quote unquote character, was just like a capsule collider, and then the weapon would just float out in front of it, it makes it way, way simpler. And then you don't have to worry about the logistics of something that's already functioning like this. Because I think this makes it harder to focus on your goal.
In a way, yes. And from past projects, I've created a firearm, like a pistol from like a previous game that I could have done, but
Yeah.
I didn't have an egg case. And the fact that there were two working, already done things within that asset pack, I
Yeah.
was like, okay, cool, I'll use these instead.
Yeah.
But,
It is
back
cool, but it does make it harder for you to like customize, you know?
yeah, if I went with my original pistol, since I wrote all that from the ground up, I could have done something similar for an AK if I had,
Exactly.
if that was required to do so.
Okay. You're kind of breaking up a little bit, so we're going to move on, but I look forward to reading about that and seeing what you write up.
Sorry about that. I'm just not weird.
That- That's okay. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. And then Austin, I see the zombie game. I read up a little bit already. I'm not sure if anything changed. Austin's in here. Can you tell me if anything's changed in this version since Monday? And if you have to, just type it. Yeah, we looked at it on Monday. I mean, I can look at it again if it was new this week. If you watch the recording, I do talk about everything. So when I first loaded it up, I wasn't sure if anything had changed. And what I noticed is that you do have stamina, but there isn't really kind of like a game choice for me to be making here. I can't like rapidly click and get a different effect from swinging slowly. And so the fun aspect of it, like the gameplay aspect, doesn't seem to be there, even though the mechanics, the function is there, which I can tell. But something I talked about on Monday was that in order for this to be a meaningful mechanic, I would have to be able to choose between two valid ways to play your game, like slugging it out with big, broad strokes to take care of crowds, or tiny little swipes to take care of individuals at a lower stamina cost. And right now, it doesn't seem like that's a possibility. It's just whenever I click. And we can block with right click. Okay. And that takes stamina as well? No. Okay, so that's kind of what I mean. It's like you've got the mechanic of stamina in there, but it's just a punishment right now. It doesn't actually give me choices. It just gives me a punitive measure for using the tool that I've got. You know what I mean? So essentially the idea of making it more meaningful would be that stamina is a penalty for swinging like crazy, but not a penalty for hitting slowly. Or maybe it's a penalty for hitting several zombies at once, but not a penalty for hitting one zombie at a time. That would be the idea. Because either one of those choices means that... is it blocking? Let's see. Maybe it is. Let's see if they hit me without it. Okay, yeah, it's halving the damage. So either one of those methods would incentivize me to act different, right? It would incentivize me to think about what I'm doing and behave differently. Also, at 0, it doesn't seem to stop me from swinging. Like, here's 0. It's not preventing me from attacking. So I think right now it's not really functioning the way you want it to. At 0 goes back to default. Okay, so it goes to a higher. Oh, I see. I was running and depleting it. Let me sit over here. So I should be able to attack faster. Okay, I think I see that. All right, let me keep doing it until it hits 0. And now there's just not a whole lot of difference between those two speeds. Like maybe it's more of a tuning thing that when I try to swing quickly, it seems like 1.5 times faster, maybe 2 times at tops, but not enough to really feel different. Yeah, I mean, playtesting is the thing. Like, you never really know how much is going to feel right or wrong until people playtest, and so that's usually the missing ingredient in any good game development, is that you have to have other people play your game a lot. The lucky thing, since you're hosting it online, you can get as many people as you can con into it to test it out and give you feedback, but you have to be specific about what you're asking them to give feedback on. And it has to be people who aren't just going to tell you, oh, it's great, like mom and dad might do. They have to actually be willing to have an opinion, and that can be tricky sometimes. All right. Cool. All right. Thank you. Okay, and that should be it for this. There's one I didn't see.
Yeah, I added that in a little bit late because it was still building. I had built it as a
Okay.
different file. I had to rebuild it as a WebGL. So I forgot about that.
Okay. Let's give it a try.
I fought a tutorial for this, and I added on to it with really only one feature, but this is my first game that I've actually coded her.
Uh-oh. I went and hit one of the very first things, and I died. I thought I was supposed to hit it. So
no, I put in the description right there.
Your ball collect capsules. Aren't they all capsules?
Oh.
If you touch the red capsules, you lose points in time. Okay. I think the capsule that I hit previously is gone. Should it have reset? Ooh, there we go.
Yeah, that's something I wasn't able to figure out. I was able to do most of the coding and stuff to reset everything else, but it seems that the capsules, once they move, they just are like that until you completely hard restart the game.
Huh, interesting. Okay. Well, now that I get the point, I'm doing all right. There we go. Also, the capsules seem to have popped into a pretty convenient place there. Are they just kind of choosing a completely random space inside this block right now?
Yeah, completely random. I set the parameter to be anywhere on the floor. So.
Do they try to place themselves away from existing capsules?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So presumably, they could all pick the exact same spot, and I would have one obstacle, right?
Yeah, that could happen.
Okay, so a good tweak of that would be pick a spot anywhere inside the square, and then check how far away are you from the existing capsules. And if you're less than, say, 1 unit or half a unit, pick a different spot and try again. And it just does that a few times until it picks a valid, open location, and that would keep the challenge sort of medium. Can I get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Or another thing would be since I'm going around, collecting this thing, you could start spawning in additional capsules the longer I play, because assuming I'm doing pretty well, then I need that additional challenge. Put that pressure curve up a little bit, and then it's a little bit of a ramping challenge. So are you primarily concerned with game design or with programming?
I feel like in this one it was a lot more in the programming end. I didn't really feel like there was much challenge in placing everything around. It was just making shapes and making sure that they weren't clipping even. But
well, the game design aspect is sort of more than just where you place things and how many. It's also the mechanics of how it works. So when I'm talking about picking a spot that is away from existing obstacles, that's game design too. And when I'm talking about how many obstacles there are and the fact that you can turn that number up over time, that's game design. So it's not all just like as simple as like here's a box and here are some capsules. It's everything about how the game is supposed to work, right? Programming is about how the game works, right? Not how it's supposed to work, but how it does work. Does it function? Does it not? Is it buggy? Is it not buggy? Executing on that idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm asking is, are you more concerned with making something work, or are you more concerned with thinking of a way it should work?
I think when I was making this, I was concerned with making it work.
Okay. And do you feel you did that?
For for the most part, I mean, I even like the red capsules wasn't part of the tutorial. That's something I just added on for my own flavor because I thought it was a bit of a, the gameplay was a bit easy with just going around collecting the one capsule. So that an
Yeah.
obstacle would prove to give more, engaging.
Right. You may also, so now I'm thinking, because these capsules haven't moved in a while, because they're in a really advantageous place for me, having a time limit for the capsule to stay in the same spot might be another thing. Where if you moved them during gameplay, you'd have to ensure not only that they're placing somewhere random on the board, but also that they're not picking a spot that is right inside the player or like within a certain radius of the player. Otherwise, it would be unfair. But like now I could just roll through these to change them up. There we go. Because I had saved up enough. Oh. Now they're all at the edges, so it's like, okay, that's a bit too easy. There we go. Cool. Oh, can I escape? I think I can. Have you tried to escape by like rolling out?
I haven't. Oh wow, you could.
I was making a little progress there. I thought maybe I could make it. Okay.
I did not test to see if that was possible.
Are you using a physics-based object? Like, does it have a rigid body and a gravity?
Yeah, I put a rigid body on it.
Okay. There's a field to just lock certain dimensions. So you could lock like the Z position. That way it could never go above a certain limit. But I think you drop down into the stage at the first part. So you might want to make sure that you start on the floor. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Now I think that's it. Or is it? Now I'm seeing more. No, I think that's it. Okay.
Salvo uploaded his.
That one looks like it's for next week. Right? This one right here. Because that's not the week that we're in. So it all worked. Very good. I'm glad it worked out. Did you find out what the problem was?
Let me. Yeah. So he just uploaded it early. He got done with it early.
No, I know, but what was the problem with not having animations playing in Sketchfab?
Oh. So I did save the FBX file, and then I tried to import it to download it. Then I had to save it again and then upload it. So I think I had to just export it again, save it, and then upload it. I think that's what the problem was.
Okay.
It's very minor detail, but I think that's what it was.
It sounds like maybe the settings weren't right the first time, because the second time you did it, it worked. So that would be my guess. But yeah, it's not going to be like you had to save it twice. That's not really a solution. The fact that you saved it twice solved it, probably because it was not the right settings the first time, or there was a missing setting or something like that. But I'm glad that it worked out eventually.
Or it might have been like a bug in the software or something. Yeah, I don't know exactly what it was, but it works now.
Uh-huh. All right, very good. So Robert requested that I talk about UV distortion, and I'm going to do that. So if you are sitting in here and you're not interested in 3D modeling or UVs, then you can go. We've looked at everyone's project. If you have any questions to ask me, feel free. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo a little bit of UV unwrapping in Maya now. Okay? So anybody who's not into that, feel free to head on out. I'm going to go ahead and open up this. See, yeah. So I made these props a couple years ago for my students' big collaborative scene, and unwrapped and textured them, and I'm going to use them as a example of unwrapping. And then I've got a second one where I haven't actually unwrapped it at all yet, and I'm interested to see how that one's going to turn out. So I'm going to go Windows Modeling, UV Editor. Here it is. We've actually got, where's the tools? There they are, UV Toolkit. I always like to dock these together, but it always wanders away for some reason. So here's the texture that I have over this dumpster right now. It's going to be a little hard to show with just one monitor, but I'll do my best here. And we can turn on this grid to superimpose this over the object and just kind of see what the initial unwrap looks like. But you can probably already see there's a little bit of awkward angle here, and depending on what I pick, we might be able to see more or less distortion. There's a setting for this though. If we go to View, UV Distortion, this is what Robert was actually referring to, this blue and red overlay. This is a depiction of where the unwrap is the most distorted. White means not distorted. Red means, I forget actually what red means. Let's see. If I do, I don't want the whole shell. Let's just do a face. It's either too tall, I think. Yeah, it must be too tall because I just widened that and it went white. So red should be too tall, and blue is too fat. There we go. But they're just kind of the two different directions for distortion. So we can see that there's something going on up here because these panels are blue and these panels are pink. And so if I grab those vertices, you can find out, looks like I've got some modeling error there, and I can look out here. There it is. So apparently, oh, I had some little bitty error here with too many vertices here, and it's caused some distortion and kind of called it out by having these colors available. So that's a good opportunity that we could use. I might be able to fix the distortion just by moving this vertex, but maybe not. Oh, there we go. So it looks like if I merge this vertex with these ones down here, that's going to help solve the distortion, but the model itself is actually distorted, so maybe I need to merge them first. Let's try that. I'm going to merge these vertices. We're going to do target weld, boom, boom. Okay. And now let's take a look. Oh, something's gone. Oh, I actually have two. I have two lids, so probably the other one over here is what we're seeing now, and that this one is less distorted, so that one. Yeah, it's over there. But they're the same, so I could just delete this one and just reduplicate it. Let's just leave it at that one. Okay. So now we no longer see that distortion there really, but I can actually visually see it. You can see this little stair-stepping thing happening right there. I'm going to turn off the overlay. And yeah, sure enough, I can see it on the texture as well. But the weird thing is, like, when I had that UV distortion mode turned on, it's nearly white. It's not really showing me very much distortion there. Actually, it's showing more distortion over here, which is kind of odd. Is that the correct? Oh, that is the correct side. Okay, it's just upside down. So that's this vertex right here. So that's how this works. Maybe I can move this around. Let's see. So if I place it up there, let's see what that looks like. Oops, view. I guess it looks a little bit better. It looks like an oval now instead of a circle. So if I undo, we can watch this dance around. There we go. Now it's back. Kind of funny. So how important is this UV distortion? Well, if there were like text in this area, or if there was like a pinstripe pattern or something really, really obvious, this would be very important. But since there isn't, it's not very important. There's nothing here except for gray, kind of cloudy, baked in shadows, and kind of, vague painted on texture. At this point, you probably wouldn't even notice if I left it completely that way. If I just had full-blown distortion like that, it's not even really going to draw attention to itself on this object, which is why I hadn't noticed it until now. But if there were something here that was very, very specifically crossing over a UV seam, or something that had text or like a perfect circle stenciled into it, then we would definitely notice it. Looks like I can reduce the effect just by pushing this edge upward, which is what the distortion overlay was indicating. Kind of like that. So let's see if I turn it on without having used it as a guide. Pretty much, but you're always going to get little bits of pink and blue. And you can see that there's quite a lot of it here, even on this lid. I feel that when I've looked at the amount of color change and then looked at my object, my overall impression has been that it has got to be a lot darker than this before it poses a real problem. So this amount of pink, in my opinion, is not really a concern. It has to go to about that red or blue before I even start to register it as a problem. And then beyond that, we're in a major area where it needs to be changed. If I undistort this, so they're saying that's as good as it gets for that panel, but you can see what it's done to the surrounding ones. There we go. So this is how wide that should be, apparently. Let's go find that. So that is where? On the back here. So this one part of this panel is apparently less distorted than all the others now. So let's turn that overlay off. Can you really see a difference? Well, not with the details I've painted. Not really. Because I painted it in the position that it was already unwrapped in. I would have to vastly change all of this detail to accommodate for that, and that's not really what I've painted. So I could do the opposite side as well. This one seems to be like if I just grab this edge and move it in. So that panel is turned white. Now this one's turned pink, so let's grab this face to where they're all equally pink and white. Keep going. Oh, it's making those worse. About there, kind of equalized it. So that would be about as undistorted as I could get. The thing is, it just wasn't very important for this. Right? Not very important for this trash can lid to have a super undistorted version. It was more important to just paint the amount of detail that I wanted on that face, on that part of the unwrap, and then just kind of move on with the project. But I definitely could have spent more time to unwrap that. It just didn't seem to be important. It says if you mirror it, then the UVs are going to be backwards, clicking the red UVs and, yeah, flipping it over. Also, I flipped one of these lids backwards too, so I'm not sure which one I deleted. I think this is the forward, quote-unquote one, but I painted it upside down. You can see back here it says woof. That was just me like making allowances for the fact that I had put it on this sheet weird. So, yeah. Let's look at the dumpster itself. So here you can see the amount of distortion around the dumpster. Pretty minimal. If you've got these milky white colors, you're basically okay already. But in this case, for the dumpster, the only really important parts were the parts with labels. So I've got this text and graffiti on the front, and this whole front panel is basically just plain or unwrapped. On the sides and back, it's just kind of milky painted on texture, so it's not super important that it not be distorted. And everywhere else, it's just a gradient of color. So most of it, we could have quite a lot of distortion, and it wouldn't matter at all. The only place it would matter is this part, this front panel, and that front panel is completely removed like this. Could I have gotten this a little bit better? Yeah, probably. Let's see. If I scale. So yeah, we could have done like that to get these crevices a little less distorted. But I am subtly distorting the big flat areas because I didn't paint them in that undistorted version already. So it's not going to make this object look any better, but it would make any details in those cracks look better. But they're in the cracks. I don't really need to see them that way anyway. So I'm just going to undo. And it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. I don't actually remember how I unwrap these boxes or how much care I put into it, so it'll be interesting to see. It looks like they're unwrapped basically how a big cube would be unwrapped, only that the top and bottom panels are completely separate, I think. Yeah, I believe so. So let's turn off the overlay. Yeah, okay, that's the inside. So the inside is just a single plane, so that if you look through the flap, you don't end up seeing nothing, you end up seeing darkness, just like that. And then the other one, I think, is the bottom of the box. Yeah, this one right here. The rest of it, all of these, this is similar to a trim sheet like Juan was doing in his project, where I've got this cardboard edge kind of texture. I definitely didn't need to do it this many times now that I know about that technique, though. I could have just done one strip of that and just overlaid them all, but instead it looks like I scribbled on each and every one of those edges separately, which is a little embarrassing that I did that. Again, the only really important part that should be undistorted is where these labels are. It's not even really important for the box corrugation kind of pattern itself. And I suspect that maybe there's a little bit of distortion around this wrinkle that I have modeled in, but that since it was meant to be a crappy, cardboard box, it probably doesn't matter. No, actually, that looks pretty good. That's almost entirely white, so I don't really see any distortion. Let's see, how about this one? I think because this is a box, then it didn't really have the opportunity to get more distorted, though I did pinch it over a little bit, but I'm not really seeing any distortion on that one at all. So maybe not a good example for this. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the other project then. That was just to show, one that's already got textures on it. So what I've got is this scene that has a bunch of low poly objects that I was not responsible for modeling, and I never actually textured because I used just color shaders in Unity when I first used these. But we've got like an island and some rocks and a tower. There's a treasure chest and a boat back here. I've had students use these in projects before. They were free to download on Sketchfab and credited the artist whenever I used them. But we never textured them, or at least I never textured them, because you could just assign colors to everything and it looked just fine. So what I did earlier was I decided I'm going to make some pine tree textures, and then I'm going to unwrap this and apply it. So this already has a texture applied to it, but it's not one that I made after the unwrapping process. I made it before. So if we look at the UV editor, where are the UVs? Okay, there they are. That's that's the UVs for this entire tree right now. They're just nothing. But what I did was make a big strip of pine needle texture, and then a big strip of bark, and then also an extra little area down here where the bark could start to transition to the ground if I want to. I also took care to make sure that these were repeating textures in their square. So everything above this halfway line can tile and repeat forever. Let's just try that real fast to make sure that's true, because I made them in Photoshop, but I don't think I ever tested that. Just make a polygon plane. Where is it? Ah, there it is. Here's my polygon plane. I'll go ahead and lift it off the grid so we can actually see it. Apply my existing new texture. There it is. And then let's turn off the UV distortion because that's really obnoxious. So there's the texture applied over everything. And then I'm going to just shrink the UV to the upper corner. In fact, let's get rid of all the divisions, make this easier on myself. Just make it one division. There we go. So now I'm going to just take these UVs and snap them to grid. Right there. And right here. Okay. And let's see if this tiles. I'm going to snap to grid. Yeah. Good enough. Yep. Pattern tiles well enough. Okay. So just to prove that that actually works, and I think it works with this one too. Let's see. I think I can move this. Where's the transform? move, and we want to move, I think it's half of a unit. There we go. Snapping to grid, duplicating and snapping to grid. That one doesn't work so well. Maybe I didn't do it for that one. Okay. Either way, let's get rid of that. So let's go back to my pine tree. So this pine tree is it was actually made in Blender at first. It wasn't even made in Maya, and it was imported, and I used it in Unity. And I don't even really know what the modeling quality is like. It looks like every single face is its own floating UV island right now. So if I select a face, yeah, that is independently moving. So whether or not it's actually merged, let's do, what should I do? Let's separate this object just to see what happens first. I'm going to do mesh separate. Okay, so I get like little individual strips of detail. Oh, even these. I thought these would be merged, but they're not. And then, is the trunk intact? Oh, the trunk is not even intact. So I might need to do like a little bit of modeling cleanup on this first, because I think that I want to merge all of these tiers together and then make sure that the trunk is all together. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go mesh combine for all of those, and then I'm going to grab the vertexes and merge vertices and just hope that that's enough, or maybe I could turn it up until it starts to move. Let's turn it up. Whoa, wow, that didn't take long. Okay, well, we'll leave it at the default. Yeah, I could display border edges, I suppose, but I'm not sure it's worth it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab all that and deselect. Let's check. Yep, that all I've got is that round shape. Mesh combine. And then I'll do the same merge vertices. I think they're all directly overlapping right now, so I don't have to turn that number up really. Okay, let's get all of these ones, deselect all of those. Yep, there's another tier. Mesh combine. Merge their vertices. So I'm doing this because when I looked at this object, they kind of looked like plates. Like each one of these tiers was just sort of like a plate from the top that could be unwrapped planar from this direction, or could be unwrapped like a cylinder from the side, and either one of those would be sufficient, but it doesn't really matter which one I choose depending on the kind of outcome that I want. So let's mesh combine vertices, merge vertices, and then finally the trunk, which I think that's all the trunk there is. Combine, and then merge the vertices. Okay. So that should be okay now. And I'm going to select each and every one of those and delete its history. So now we're starting from a slightly cleaner slate here on this tree. But you can see these other trees are kind of set up the same way. They're not really that much different. Alright, so what are we going to do? We have to determine where the seams are going to be on this texture. I've got this flat square shape here, which means that it's probably going to be easier to start with these lower shapes, even though I can't see them very well. Let me make sure all their transformations are frozen. They are. So I could actually pull this apart like this to make it easier to just see everything if I want to, and then put it back together at the end by just zeroing out that translate Y. Let's go ahead. Bump, 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 bump. And this is one of the first things that I might do. I might have them separate just so I can see everything. If you're going to do something like make a wonky object that's like crooked, I would do that last. I would do that after unwrapping and texturing probably. So if I wanted to bend this tree, I probably would have modeled it completely straight and then perturbed these vertexes after the fact. So let's see. I kind of like to do this step in the 3D view, really. If we come up to UVs, we've got 3D cut and sew tool, but I kind of want to see what auto seams does with this. Wow, nothing? It may be because of this low polygon kind of look, but it seems like it didn't do anything at all. I may have to soften all the edges and then try it. Okay, soften. How about now? UV, auto seams. What are the settings here? Fixed non-manifold, seams cut, select, cut along hard edges, split shell tolerance. Just make sure this is default. Oh, I guess it is. Let's have it fixed non-manifold if it needs to. It seems to have done nothing. Okay. Then, first thing typically that I do for an object that I don't know where it came from and I need to do UVs to it, I use one of the UVing methods, and it doesn't even really matter which one. I just want to start off with something that's a little bit more reasonable, like planar or cylindrical or even spherical or automatic. It doesn't really matter. I just want some cuts and some merged areas. So I'm just going to do planar, and let's do planar from the Y. Let's do planar in the Y. Keep image width height, project before distortions, and there. There we go. So at least we've got some texture information that's a little bit more reasonable now. You can see it's kind of a mess in here. All the UV shells stacked like this. I'm kind of interested to see how distorted is this already. So let's turn on UV distortion. Not very. Not especially. Which is a bit shocking to me. I thought it would be a lot worse, really. There's a bit at the cone up here. But it's just possible that we could relax this a little bit and get fairly undistorted information. Now, the texture that I've made is not really going to work with this very well, because I was assuming, which one is this? That one. Because I was assuming a flat square kind of unwrapping, but still kind of happy with how little distortion we had. Let's go ahead and try to just relax it and see what we get. So I'm going to come over here to, like, let's say unfold probably. Let's try just clicking unfold. Okay, that made the center much, much worse. What's your deal, center? Huh. I don't know why that made the center so much worse. Unfold, how about optimize? Okay, most of it's pretty good. I don't know why the center is still so poor. Let's try pushing around. Yeah, it seems that if I scale this out, it gets a lot better for the most part. So I'm going to try just kind of like blindly figuring out where this can go. Okay, so that's better for that one and worse for the other. Seems like maybe this got twisted somehow. Trying to follow some of these around. I think it's very tall in the middle. That's probably it. So it can't possibly fit. Let's go see. Yeah, so these are very, very tall, very thin faces. So there's not really a way for me to make them the right shape and size. I think that's also why it was so small in the middle, whereas although I'm trying to get rid of the distortion, this is actually giving it more texture space, which is sort of what it needs. Kind of like that. Let's see how it appears. What does the texture look like on the side of that? Not really all that bad. A little stretched, of course. Okay, let's try to unwrap this in a more sensible way then. Right now it's all just one big shell. When I look at these, it looks like I could cylindrically unwrap them and then just chop them up on one of these lines running straight up and down. or I could even cut them in half and then flatten them out, and they'll kind of turn into fans. So those are a couple options that I can explore. Let's try. I'm going to see where's a likely place. Like right here, I think. This looks like a likely place to cut. So we'll just do that. I'll cut UV edge right there. And on the other side as well, right here, I could cut. Okay, so now I've got 2 UV shells, and we can see what happens when I use those same commands, now that it's got different options. Let's do unfold. Okay, so that already looks a lot more like the side. This, I don't know what this is right now. Okay, fine. And then we'll just optimize. Okay, that one needs a lot of optimization. I may have picked a bad place to cut this one. This one might need to be cut again. This one, though, it's not doing anything. It's basically saying that one is already completely good. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I kind of agree. Looks real good. This one, though, doesn't look much worse. For being as twisted and weird as it is, it doesn't really look that bad. Maybe right here, just a little bit. Okay, so not that bad, really. I could make another cut right here. Okay, so now that should have split this. Well, it took off a third right there. Let's turn that off. That's kind of annoying. Let's unfold once more. So that one's probably going to be great. Yep. And now this one just keeps twisting up. Really weird. So you can see as I keep clicking optimize, these ones are all overlapping because they're actually 3-dimensionally spread way out. And so it's kind of impossible for it to occupy a really good area. So I'm going to unfold one more time and then optimize just to where they start to almost touch and then stop. We can grab certain UVs, like these ones. We can tell that one to optimize instead. How is the distortion doing? I don't really know. Let me grab this whole side. Oop, I didn't want to get that one. There we go. I'm just kind of letting this entire side relax down a little bit. If there's a better way than mashing this button, I'd love to know what it is, because I was taught to mash the button. That's literally what I was taught to do. And I always thought it was a little bit silly rather than just turning a strength up or something, but it seems to do the job.
The optimize tool to the right of it might have an option to be stronger. I'm not entirely sure.
Where's my tool options? Oh, right here. Okay, so there's a... Ooh, I just docked it. That was weird. Let me turn off the outliner. Size, strength, yeah. The brush does. So then I could just paint over it. Let's see. Yeah. That kind of works.
And under probably tools in your UV editor, there's probably an option for optimize at the top.
Up here?
There it is. Probably.
Did it pop up somewhere? I think that's this now. Oh yeah, it's like unfold or optimize, and it's like a brush.
Oh, it looks like it's only brush settings.
Yeah.
I wonder if you strengthen it there and then hit the optimize button if it does anything. Like instead of brushing over it, just hitting optimize.
It didn't like that. It says turning to 100% is not something I can do. Okay. Well then why give me the option? Didn't like that either. Why do you let me do that then? Just don't let me. Okay. Anyway, all of that's close enough to undistorted that I would be happy with it, but it's probably not going to work with the texture that I made because of the way that I made the texture. So let's take the UV shell, rotate it, stick it on there. Looks like I'll have to scale them a little bit. Okay, so if I had painted this like a fan, then this would probably work great, but I didn't paint them like a fan. I painted them like a straight rectangle UV toolkit, come here. Let's just pop this over here. We're not getting any distortion really, but it's not really working with the model. So let's do it a different way then. I'm going to unwrap this one right underneath it. And I'm just going to preemptively grab everything that looks even remotely like a vertical rectangle. So I'm going to cut those edges. This one I can't exactly. Let's grab that and that, I suppose. This one, this one, this one, and that one. So I'm going to cut all of that, cut UV edges. All right, and then in my editor, there they all are. Grab all those shells, unfold, optimize a couple times. Don't even need to. Now it doesn't do anything for these ones. I'm going to stand them all upright so that the outside of the tree is to the bottom and the inside is to the top. Just like that. And what I'm going to do is just stretch them into rectangles. So I'm going to just make them fit. We'll come all the way down here. That's supposed to be transparency down there, but I don't think I hooked it up. And I think that there's, what is it, a lattice or something? I could just use soft select, or I could do it even more primitive and just grab this stuff and scale it to move properly. Let's see. I'm going to grab all of those UVs. I'm going to try to keep it in somewhat of the same shape, but not especially carefully. I'm just going to try to make it rectangle shaped. So kind of like that, and scale this, scale this. And then I'm going to check how distorted did I just make this. Okay, pretty bad, especially at the top. What if I move this? Okay, that's worse. Something like that is a little bit better. Okay, wider seems to be better for that one. And anywhere where I can just minimize that distortion a little bit, I'm trying to. But not really with respect to making it anything other than a rectangle shape. Just if I can move it up and down or scoot it just a little bit to kind of minimize, like maybe like this would probably be best. All right, let's just take that UV shell and just leave it right in the middle. And I'm going to do that again. Or you know what? That's going to be in the way. So I'm going to pop that off to the side and do each one of them. So what I want to see is how bad can this get? Like if I just do this, if I just force it to constrain to the texture that I made, is this going to look like crap or not? My theory is no, it's not going to look like crap. It's going to actually look better, despite the fact that I'm distorting this more. But we'll find out. Okay, and I'm going to try to scale this all to kind of be vertical. Scale this all to kind of be vertical. And then if I can move this into a less distorted form, the better. Actually, that side, by comparison, looks much better.
There are quick buttons in the UV toolkit if you want to make things perfectly vertical or horizontal.
I don't want them to be perfectly vertical. That's the thing. Like the straighten tools, you mean? Like straighten UVs?
No, right underneath that there's the align and snap thing.
Right.
And those buttons.
Oh, yeah. Like just grab and hit. Yeah, I probably should have been doing that. But I'm trying to like respect the fact that it does taper at the top a little bit. Like I don't want it to just be a rectangle. The end. I kind of want it to look a little bit like it looks in the 3D view. But I understand that I'm doing a really big, heavy distortion on this, so maybe I should just abandon that notion. Let's put this over here. Let's use those tools on this one. Maybe it'll be better. So if I grab all of those and align, boom, yep, and align, yep, and then see this cut, it'll never work on the cut because it's got to accommodate both sides, but
Yeah, it's not perfect.
no. But then I'm doing just about as imperfect a job as I could be doing at this stage. Does being flatter help this at all? Maybe a little. Seems like this wants to stretch out. Just a little like that. It's amazing to me that one of these triangles can be white and the other one can be red. Just like immediately like that.
Yeah, I don't get it.
No, neither do I. I don't know how it could be that big a difference. Anyway, slide that over. And let's do these last couple. I guess I don't even need to bring them over there if that's what I'm going to do. Let's do edge, edge. Oh yeah, the edge doesn't work because it'll grab other things. So again, if we had text or a strict pattern, this would be ruinous to do. But since we don't, what we've got is pine needle shapes. This is probably going to be fine. I do want to try to normalize their sizes, though. And so we've got scale, get texel density for this one, and then I'm going to apply it to the other 4 set. So now they're all of an approximate size to each other. And it looks like, let me line up their top edges. Just kind of like this. Because I'm going to have to scale all of them. Or maybe not. I guess I could leave some having more space at the bottom. I'm going to scale all of them down just a little bit, though, I think. And then maybe I want them, thinking like, which side do I want them to hang off on? Let's look at them first. Let's see what we get. Okay, let's turn distortion off. Okay, what do we get? How bad is it? Well, it's not great. So we're getting a lot of like back and forth kind of angles on these. And I wonder if I can fix it. Maybe. If I grab this edge, for instance, and I'm probably going to have this side by side at this point. Let me get this right over here. So grabbing this edge, for instance, is there a way for me to fix this? Can I slide it in a direction? And you kind of can, interestingly enough, although it looks insane up here. It looks like it doesn't make any sense at all that was a fix. Or I can grab an individual vertex or UV, like this one, and start straightening out that by squeezing this way over here, something like that. Is there a way for me to fix this whole thing? So let me grab the other UV islands, just not that one. Let's move those aside. And see if I can visually, like, with one eye in the editor and one eye in the 3D view, can I make this look proper again? So it looks like that's got to stay over there. How about this one? Oh, this one's got to come over here, I guess. So I'm doing what the tools presume to be doing, which is like fixing the distortion just kind of by eyeball. Let's try both of them. And you can see like it starts to look better and better as I do this, but it's bizarre. Like it doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason, really. And I'm not entirely sure it does. Come on. Something like over there. So now those are fully overlapping. Okay. Well, I've got the minimum of distortion now, visually anyway, and it looks like that. Kind of weird. Is that just what the optimize or unfold button does? That's kind of the question. In my experience, no, that's not what that optimize button or the unfold button does. What it does is try to perfectly match the proportions of the face if you were looking directly at the face from the normal direction. But that's not always what we're trying to do when we're unwrapping. And sometimes that doesn't work very well, and sometimes it does. So let's grab this one. This one, if I hit optimize, it's probably going to start to resemble this panel in the 3D space more and more. So let's give it a try. But there's always some things like down here at the bottom, why is it doing that? You know, why is it pinching together as opposed to moving apart? I can see how different shaped these panels are. This one's very wide. I guess they would have some overlap. But is this one really turning hard left like that? I guess it must be, because this checkerboard says it's good. Okay, so let's overlap it with the green and see what it looks like when I do that. It's not bad. I think this is a bit weird over here. But yeah, it's not bad. So it's really odd. You know, the big takeaway is like, can you stretch it into these rectangular shapes? Yeah, you absolutely can if you want to. The amount of distortion is sort of minimal. If I just hit unfold or optimize just a little bit, then immediately it's almost completely gone because it's gone back to its shape a little bit, but it hasn't gone all the way back, so it's a little bit easier and nicer to deal with. But you really don't have to, depending on the kind of texture that you've got. Like, if we were really just going to zoom way out on these things, they look a little bit lumpy, but they don't really look that bad. This one up here, which I just chopped up and optimized and laid out like a fan, does look a bit better, but it's also not lining up with the direction of the fronds, I guess you would call them. Let's try one more and do it directly from the top, just for comparison. So this one, oh, it's already done, right? Let's bring it over. And unfold, optimize. There we go. Okay, so directly from the top, not following the direction of the texture that I made at all. But if you were to look straight down on it, you know, it looks fine. Actually, even from the side, it doesn't look all that bad. That kind of does. But that is a very distorted peak. And there's not a lot I could do about that except for unwrap it differently, which at this point I probably should. Kind of weird. The trunk, of course, is going to work a lot better if it's unwrapped vertically because it's already cylindrically shaped. So let's just do that real fast. I'll just pick a seam, this one, cut it, and then we'll just unfold. There we go. Move it over, straighten it up a little bit, and then can I straighten out these UVs? I probably can, and not really have too much of an error with it. Since this is a repeating texture, it would be nice if I did. It would certainly be treated a lot better than the fan shapes up here if I did. So let's give it a try. We're going to just grab the tops, flatten them down, bottom, flatten it down. Right here, I don't really care if this one's as flat, but I'll just do it a little bit. And then get this last row completely flat and snapped, and this last row completely flat and snapped. And then I want the vertices on either side to line up. So I will center them, and I guess all of these, fine, center them. So now I'm definitely going to have distortion because I didn't move any of this center stuff around, but I'll just like spread it out. But the seam at least will be lining up. It should be, at least. Get each one of these to be as vertical as possible. Alright, so let's see how that looks. Yeah, pretty much. There's a little distortion, I think. But we might be able to solve that either by making it taller or shorter. I kind of like what happens when this starts to shrink down a little bit. I'm sure that's the wrong direction, though. Pretty sure. Let's find out. Let's look at the what the UV distortion says. It's not really changing very much. It seems to think that's... Yeah, it doesn't care. It seems to think this is correct, but there's no way that's right. And then when I stretched it out, it just looked better because I'm smashing more of this detail in there, but hell if I know if that's right. I don't think it is. So weird. We also seem to have a little bitty seam here because the green is the neighbor, and even though I snapped it both in Photoshop and in Maya, it's better to just bring it back a tiny bit. Even more? Yep, even more. It may be actually this one's fault now because it's going off the edge. Let's bring that one back just a little. I can almost just still see it there, but I think it's pretty much seamless. I didn't bother making the green blotches seamless. I just put them on to have a different texture variety down there. So yeah, it just doesn't seem to care sometimes. Like, as far as quality, it doesn't seem to make a difference. I think it would be nicer if I took this whole row and gave it more texture space. But then it starts to look squished. Right about here, it starts to look squished. Maybe right about there? Is that really the proportions of this area? I don't know. I don't think so. So maybe this goes to show a lot of this stuff is a lot more up in the air than you really need to worry about. Generally, just see if it looks good on the model. And if it does, don't worry about whatever this thing says over here. If it doesn't look good on the model, there's usually a reason why, and those can indicate why. Like the distortion can be a nice kind of indicator that there's something wrong in this area, like it was on my dumpster, to indicate that there was a modeling error. Or this is the reason why this looks so weird, is because there's heavy distortion in this area. So ideally, I think the best one for this model would be what I did on this layer, is to illustrate the pine needles as if they're a semicircular fan, probably about a quarter of a fan or maybe half a fan. I'd probably put this up in the corner over here and just draw all the details radially out from that corner, filling up this whole area, cutting off the pine needles in a semicircular arc like that, and then fitting whatever cuts I could into it to make it as nice as possible. Trunk, I think it's fine as is. Up and down, cylindrically unwrapped. Doesn't even matter if I bend that trunk or put more divisions in it. I think it's still going to look fine the way it is that way. Okay? What that could kind of mean, though, here, let me do one last one for this bottom one. I'm going to unwrap this last one planar in the Z direction. Just because I think this will work. Okay, there it is. Now, I'm going to scale it down and put it up in this green. And that's essentially what that other one was doing. Doesn't look half bad. Almost looks like wood grain, though. So let's see. This should be an area of high distortion. That should be near the actual edge. Yeah, it is. Okay. So a few of these ended up looking quite distorted, but I could make the UV seam right there and then relax it, and then it should be a bit better. So I'm going to cut right here, and then probably over on this other side as well. Let's just say, actually this side looks fine, strangely enough, but we'll cut it anyway. And then let's just, I wonder if optimize, I don't want to unfold, I want to optimize and see. Oh boy, that was a mistake. This does happen sometimes. It's flipping itself inside out is what it's trying to do there. So let's undo that. Okay, unfold, then optimize. And then that's basically as good as the other ones were. I hate using one screen's worth of real estate. There we go. Weird direction, a little bit of stretching, but yeah. It's definitely not as bad as this one. This one, which I stretched into the rectangular shape artificially, is the worst one, because I just did things that were very, very unnatural for that shape. This one, top, probably the second worst, because it's just a planar flat down. Very unnatural kind of shape for this texture. I could probably paint it to look right, but it would be a hassle. Then this one where I just did the kind of lazy unwrapping, and this one where I did planar and then chopped it in half are probably the better ones. Although I think the best one is probably right here, these couple of panels that I spent more time on manually moving around to kind of check the distortion. I think they came out the best of all, strangely enough. Weird. Robert, does that help at all?
Yes.
It's a wild, wild world, isn't it?
Yeah, I regret ever stumbling upon it. I was happy in my ignorance.
In general, here's what I do. Like, let's just grab the treasure chest back here, just because I know it's very complicated. It's got a lot of parts. I'll do this in general. I'll do not automatic, because that creates a lot of seams. I'll usually do planar from who cares what direction, because I'm going to optimize it anyway. So planar from Z. There we go. So that whole thing is unwrapped now. Every seam is because the model ends. Okay. Then I'll go all around it and chop up the places where I know for sure there needs to be a seam there because of just how this thing is shaped. So like the inner edge of this boxy part, for sure, it's got to be chopped up. I'll try not to do too much in one go because the selection can be problematic, but I might do these inner edges. I actually don't know what's going on with this surface. It looks attached right now, but it might not be. So I'm just going to say all of those I'm going to cut up. Come on. There we go. And then if this is attached, then I guess I would cut this entire thing off because that's a treasure pile. And so essentially I'm just going to get it to the right number of UV islands and then just hit unfold and optimize, and whatever it gets me I work with. That's the fastest way I know to do this. So cut right there, and then I won't do the whole thing, but just for the sake of argument, it actually looks like I could leave that as a part of the top, I think. So I'm just cutting the bare essential, and I'm worried that this model is actually not sealed and this isn't going to work. Just because I'm thinking that since I brought this in from Blender. But let's just give it a try. So we'll just do that much. Okay. So now I should be able to pick UV shells directly on here. So there's one. There's one. And then here should be 4, 2, 3, 4. All right, good enough. Here they are, looking absurd. Unfold. Yeah, let's fix some non-manifold geometry. Unfold, optimize, and move them over here. And then typically, because the scales get all wacky, pick some representative object that you can recognize. Like this is the treasure pile. Get the texel density, and then set it for everything else. So there we go. We got the top of the treasure chest. Why does it look so... Oh, that is asymmetric. Huh, I never noticed that. Anyway, there's the top of the treasure edges. Here are the sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd probably end up overlapping all of these and painting something similar onto them. This should be already good to go. This should be good to go. These are all good except for the angle. So if I turn on the checkerboard, it should look fine on those pieces. And it does. So that's the nice quick way to work. Just unwrap the whole thing in planar so that there's no seams except for the ones that are mandatory. Pick your seams, cut them, and then unfold and optimize. Then, if you want to do something funny after that, it's up to you.
That's generally how I do it. I just wasn't sure
Yeah.
if it was worth it to take the time to manually try and fix up the distortion colors.
Hell no. I just use the checkerboard most of the time. I almost never turn that distortion colors thing on until I'm uncertain and I want to see what its opinion is. I like the checkerboard though because it's a nice tight pattern with really clear problems when they occur. So if I'm scooting over this and I see that nice checkerboard pattern distorting or bending, then I know there's something wrong, or stretching like this. So on the surface of these coins, for instance, I could look at that and go, ew, that's gross. Something's really wrong there. Right? Or if...
They're trying their best.
Yeah, they're trying their best, damn it. Or if there's like a single UV that for some reason is out of place, like this one, then you get to see it immediately. I mean, with this checkerboard's good enough. Even just a little bit, and there's a big hint right there that something's weird. Although the surface changes right at that point, so that could explain it. But if I hit undo, right, there's a big difference. That looks much nicer. And typically it's just grab a small area and optimize anyway. Cool? Cool. So yeah, in general, see if there's a problem first. If there is, use the distortion to help fix it. If not, don't sweat it. But it is hard to fit things into the nice kind of like trim sheet square shape sometimes. Looking at this scene though, I could probably make a minimum number of textures and apply them to everything. I know that I would need bark. I know that I would need grass, stone, wood planks, and whatever this is, moss or something.
That's stone. That's a stone wall, I think.
Yeah, but I think there's moss on the tops because that soft, weird, this stuff. Hard to tell. But I could probably make a minimum of a few textures, like this ladder and this plank could definitely share. The door and the plank could definitely share as long as it's not the same one over and over. This bridge and all of those things. And we could end up getting this whole scene looking pretty nice with minimum distortion, so long as we didn't have too many situations like this pine tree. But I doubt that we would. The big walls would be tougher, but since they're all kind of cylindrical, that's not really a big deal. And we could even make flat, straight walls out of that because they unwrap in a similar way, in a similar fashion. But yeah. So essentially, I would just start trying to do that, looking at the checkerboard patterns and then blanking in my my colors and basic patterns in Photoshop, and then looking at the 3D models to make sure everything's going well as it progresses, never going to a detail stage until the basics already work. Yeah, because then you run into a problem like this where there's just no way in hell it's ever going to work, and I got to paint it completely different. Cool. All right. There you go. There's a little demo. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording here.